Japanese food went global. Sushi bars in every city. Thai food went global. Pad Thai on every corner. Korean food went global. Kimchi in every supermarket. Filipino food, one of the most food-obsessed cultures on the planet, 117 million people who organize their entire lives around eating. Fiestas built around food, birthdays built around food, funerals built around food. And yet, in most cities outside the Philippines, you could walk for miles and never find a Filipino restaurant. If you do find one, it's almost always in a Filipino neighborhood, serving Filipino customers, not breaking into the mainstream the way ramen shops or Thai kitchens did. So what happened? How did a country this obsessed with food end up this invisible on the global food map? And is that finally changing? But to understand why it's changing, you first have to understand what held it back. In a survey by YouGov of 25,000 people across 24 countries, Filipino food ranked in the bottom 4 out of 34 cuisines tested. Average global popularity of about 36%. Italian was at 84. Chinese, 78. Japanese, 71. Thai, 70. Filipino, 36. Now, part of that is exposure. Most of those respondents had never tried Filipino food, but that's exactly the point. They hadn't tried it because it wasn't there. It isn't in their cities. It isn't on their radar. And that raises the real question. Why not? There are nearly 11 million Filipinos living overseas, one of the largest diasporas on the planet. Chinese immigrants built Chinatowns. Thai immigrants opened Thai restaurants. Vietnamese immigrants gave the world pho shops. Indian immigrants brought curry to every continent they touched. Filipinos are everywhere, and yet the Filipino restaurant wave never happened, not in the way it did for everybody else. But the question is, why? I've been thinking about this for a while, and I think there are at least 4 real reasons. The first one is the hardest to talk about. There's a word in Tagalog called hiya. It means shame. And multiple Filipino food writers and chefs had pointed to it as one of the biggest barriers to Filipino food going global, connected to something deep. Centuries of colonization taught Filipinos that anything imported was better. Spanish food, American food. For a long time, there wasn't a culture of presenting Filipino food as something to be proud of on a global stage. I've heard from people in the food industry that for decades, Filipino entrepreneurs abroad were more likely to open generic Asian restaurants than specifically Filipino ones. And I have to say that when I look back to my own experience first trying Filipino food, it came about 2 ways. The first was one of my best friends when I was younger was Mike Arilla. Both of his parents were from the Philippines, and when I would hang out at their house, there'd be a ton of Filipino food there, stuff I never tried before, and that they had to tell me what the names of the dishes actually were. Second time that I really got used to Filipino food was my oldest son, Asher, was working for a family originally from the Philippines as well, but the mom had a restaurant that was more of a general American diner. And as part of that, one of the things that you could order was lumpia. Now, she made the best lumpia of my life, and I still really miss Gemma's lumpia, but she knew how much I liked it, and she was kind enough to send my son home with some free lumpia from time to time for the family to have. But again, this wasn't at a Filipino restaurant. My first Filipino food was with a Filipino family that I was close to, and my second time trying Filipino food was just one dish out of many other dishes like burgers and fries and shakes at an American diner that just happened to sell some amazing lumpia on the menu. Now, if I went to this diner and I hadn't known what lumpia was, I probably wouldn't even order it because the name was just unfamiliar to me at the time. So this goes back to what people in the food industry for decades, Filipino entrepreneurs abroad were more likely to open generic Asian restaurants than specifically Filipino ones, because those cuisines had global credibility and Filipino food didn't. And if that sounds like a strange kind of cultural insecurity, consider this. Thailand has a government program called Global Thai. It's been running since 2002. The Thai government literally subsidized Thai restaurants opening abroad. They train chefs, They standardized menus. They created a certification system. There are now over 17,000 Thai restaurants worldwide. That didn't happen by accident. That was national food diplomacy. South Korea did the same thing with kimchi and bibimbap. Japan did it with sushi and ramen. These governments invested in making their cuisine a global brand. The Philippines never did that. Not until very recently. Now, the second reason is one that Filipino chefs themselves talk about. Filipino food is hard to define in a sentence. Think about it. If someone says Thai food, you immediately picture something. Lemongrass, coconut milk, chili, a bit of fish sauce. There's a clear flavor profile. If someone says Japanese food, you picture sushi or ramen, the clean presentation, umami. If someone says Filipino food, what do you picture? Most people outside the Philippines maybe picture adobo, but probably nothing at all. Maybe lumpia. And adobo isn't even one thing. There are hundreds of versions. Soy sauce, vinegar, coconut milk, dry or wet, chicken, pork, squid. Every province has its own. Every family has its own. A chef named J.P. Anglo put it this way. He said, Filipino food is kalat, spread out. There are too many factions for you to say, this is Filipino food. The Philippines is over 7,000 islands. The food in Pampanga is completely different from the food in Cebu. The food in Ilocos isn't quite like the food in Mindanao. And that diversity is beautiful, but it makes it incredibly hard to brand. Thai food has pad Thai. One dish, one name, instant recognition. Filipino food has sinigang, which is a sour soup that uses different souring agents depending on where in the country you are. Tamarind in one province, guava in another, calamansi somewhere else, batuan, camillas, green mango. That complexity is the beauty of the cuisine, but it is also the reason it doesn't travel easily. You can't franchise complexity. The third reason is that Filipino ingredients are hard to find outside the Philippines. Calamansi, bagoong, pandan, banana blossoms, ube. These aren't sitting on shelves in a Western supermarket. And the ones that are available abroad don't taste quite the same. One chef said that when he cooks Filipino food overseas, the ingredients feel too clean. The eggplants look too polished. The flavors are softer. Because Filipino food depends on the rawness of ingredient that's hard to replicate in a country where everything is processed and packaged. Even some Filipinos that I know living here in BGC, they're like, I really miss the food in the province because it just has that raw flavor. It just tastes different and it's hard to find the same flavors in a place like BGC. How much more so if Filipinos are living overseas somewhere. Now, compare this difficulty with ingredients to sushi. Sushi needs rice, fish, seaweed, vinegar. Those are all available globally. Or ramen, right? It needs noodles, broth, pork, egg. Again, all available globally. Filipino food needs things that don't exist outside the Philippines, at least not in the same form. And the fourth reason, don't hate me, Filipinos. This one is going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but I think that this is part of it in today's age. Filipino food doesn't always look, let me say, pretty. And in a social media world, that matters more than ever. Imagine sushi, it looks beautiful, right? Or Thai curry is colorful. Dinuguan is a dark brown blood stew. Filipinos might find it delicious, but it doesn't necessarily photograph so well. Or take sisig, it's chopped face meat on a sizzling plate. Might be incredible flavor, but it doesn't have the same visual appeal as a sushi platter. And then there's the, let's say, fear factor problem. Western media discovered balut years ago, fertilized duck egg, and for a long time, that was the only Filipino food most Westerners had heard of. I could still remember the first time I saw balut. It was in an Asian market in California, and I was with a Filipino, and when she saw it, she was jumping up and down, so excited that there was balut. And it's like, what are you so excited about? And then I saw it. It's a bit different if you're not used to something like that. And not just for boring vegetarians like me. Shows like Fear Factor and Bizarre Foods featured Filipino dishes as the weird stuff. the gross stuff, the challenge round. A food journalist named Cheryl Cho put it this way: the Filipino food got fear factorized in the minds of global audiences, and that reputation is a little bit hard to shake. Now, here's what I want you to hold in your head. While all of this was happening, while Filipino food was being overlooked and misunderstood on the global stage, something incredible was happening right here. Every single day, millions of Filipinos were eating at carinderias. If you've seen my video on the carinderia economy, you know what I'm talking about. Those small home kitchens where there's a woman cooking all morning and feeding the neighborhood for 50 to 80 pesos a plate. That is the purest expression of Filipino cooking. It's regional, home style, there's no pretension, there's no Michelin star ambitions, just real food made by someone who learned it from her mother, who learned it from her mother, and it's extraordinary. The sinigang at a good carinderia, people are going to say, is a bit life-changing. But the thing is, this is food that was never designed to travel. It was designed to feed your neighbor. And I think that's actually the thesis of this whole conversation. The reason Filipino food never went global isn't that it isn't good. It's that the best of it was never meant to leave the neighborhood. All right, but don't give up on me yet, and don't give up on the story yet. This is where the story shifts, because something happened in October 2025 that I think changed everything. The Michelin Guide came to the Philippines for the first time. 108 restaurants recognized. 9 restaurants received Michelin stars. A restaurant called Helm by Josh Boutwood got 2 stars, the highest rating in the country. 8 more restaurants got 1 star. Places like Toyo Eatery, where chef Jordi Navarro has been on Asia's 50 best list multiple times. Or Hapag, Gallery by Jelly, Inado, Casa Palma, Linamnam. These are chefs who are doing something the generation before them didn't do. They're cooking Filipino food and calling it Filipino food. They're not hiding it behind French technique or Japanese presentation. They're taking sinigang and kinilaw and sisig and presenting them with the confidence that says, this is world class, and it always was. The Department of Tourism is now positioning food as a national tourism strategy. The Philippines was just named one of the 16 most exciting food destinations in the world by the Michelin Guide. It's a big deal. They're hosting the UN Tourism World Gastronomy Forum in 2026. This is a country that's waking up to the idea that its food is an asset, not something to be embarrassed about. And then there's Jollibee. I know it's a bit of a stretch. I went from Michelin star to Jollibee, but hang in with me there. I've talked about them before on this channel, but what's happening now is different. Jollibee has over 10,000 stores worldwide. Nearly 7,000 of those are outside the Philippines. They're now in over 30 countries. And in January 2026, they announced they're spinning off their international business and listing on a U.S. stock exchange by 2027. A Filipino fried chicken company listing on Wall Street. Their first U.S. franchise opened in Daly City, California back in 1998. Now they have over 100 locations across the U.S. and Canada. Their new U.S. locations are averaging $14,500 in daily sales per store. That's not nostalgia buying from homesick Filipinos. That's Americans choosing Chicken Joy over Big Macs and Jolly Spaghetti over everything else on the drive-thru menu. Jollibee is proving that Filipino flavors can compete on a global stage, not by becoming something else, by being exactly what they are. I think the most important shift isn't Jollibee. It's not even Michelin. Though it's the chefs, a generation of Filipino chefs who refuse to apologize for their food. Tom Conanan in Washington, D.C. won a James Beard Award cooking unapologetically Filipino food. Jordi Navarro at Toyo Eatery has been telling the world that Filipino ingredients are not exotic. They're essential. JP Anglo at Sarza has been saying for years, we need to be bold. This is who we are. This is our food, and we love it. That confidence is new, and it matters more than any award, because the real barrier to Filipino food going global was never the food itself. It was the belief that it deserved to be there. So, where does that leave us? Filipino food is still not on every corner the way Thai or Japanese food is. That might take another decade. But the foundation is being built right now. Michelin stars are being awarded, Chefs are winning international recognition. A Filipino restaurant company is headed to Wall Street. The government is finally treating food as a national brand. If you think this video would be meaningful to someone, I would appreciate you sharing. And if you haven't already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Please click that subscribe button. And as always, guys, thank you for taking the time to watch. Take care.